today's session is about experimentation in product management. More or lessly, it's a hypothesis, and ever since I've been given this topic, I've been debating whether it's a hypothesis or it's experiment or all products are experiment based. But here's my point of view that I would like to show you guys. The agenda for the day is, of course, I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to ask who really the product managers are, what they are, what are the basics to be in place for an experimentation, how to go about it, and how to learn from others' experience. What are the examples that are there in the industry for experimentations that have happened during this time? Please interrupt if you guys want any detailed discussion at the end of the session. Note down your questions. I'll take them at the end of the session. And if something is not clear, do note that slide down, and I'll be happy to clarify on that. If I'm not audible, do let me know. All right, guys. So a brief about me. I am currently founding my own venture by the name of Atrox Fortuna. I am dealing in digital strategy space, marketplace management, and in international business. I have an experience of total 13 years in e-commerce, mobile commerce, digital social media management, automotive industry, digital strategies, and international trade. What I have extensively done is moved around the industry and seen a lot of products grow, build in front of me. I have literally seen the social media change. I have in India seen the e-commerce startups. I have seen Groupon clones in India. I have worked with Groupon clones in India. I have worked with similar companies. Overall, I have worked with few of the brands which are there, like Ferns and Petals, Droom, Mydala.com, Tech Mahindra, BMW India from DGTG's side, and overall it's been a nice journey and it's been a learning. And I am not per se someone who's educated myself in product management, but learned through experience, and I've seen the industry grow. In academics, I've done BBA, I've done MBA in international business, I've done IPR law, I've done cyber law in India from India, and I have done Google certifications. That's where I keep learning. Right now, I'm trying to learn a Russian language at the moment. Let's see where it takes me. Moving ahead. So I would really want to start off with who are you in a product management space? What are you? Are you a builder? Are you building a product from scratch, which does not have any other product in line in competition? Are you building something on a hypothesis? Are you building something? Are you copying someone? Who are you? As a product manager, that's a very important question. Where do you place yourself? 90% of the products are built in place already. And how they work basically is that a majority of the original products, let's say in the digital space, have been created and someone is copying them and putting some innovation. But there are some innovative products in AI and ML that we are looking at. So the basis aesthetics of the product is to be built in place. And the topic of today is experimentation. So any new product that you build, which is original, is actually an experimentation altogether. Bulk of the product lines which are being created have all the development done from the technology side. But what does a product manager do? Product manager prioritize the, is he a builder? He's working with the team. But if a product manager is an optimizer, he's working in the position of optimizing the product to its extent to get the maximum out of at the lowest cost. But if a product manager is a maximizer, he's on the marketing side. So which type of product manager are you? You need to establish that before going to the journey of experimentation and product management. On which side do you fall in? Whether it's the revenue side, whether it's growth, whether it's efficiency, whether it's back-end management, whether it's communication. What type of product are you talking about? What is the audience that it's looking into? What are the stakeholders? How much revenue is dependent on you as a product manager? And that's where your experimentation journey begins. Does revenue matter to you? Does the experimentation that you're doing, does that matter? So this is something that you need to identify to start off your experimentation journey as a product manager. Before you are able to establish that, let me go a bit more in detail about this in my next slides. What is the basic in place for experimentation in a product management? See, experimentation and hypothesis is nothing new in product management. Any new product is an experiment, whether it's being copied, whether it's original, whether it's unique, what audience does it talk to? An e-commerce site in India talking to an English, talking to a different language would be unique to a different audience. So it depends whether the audience has seen that or not. How much have you taken the features, lifted the features from others? It depends on that. Now, having said that, what does it take for a product manager to reach to a conclusion that whether he's at the right space to, you know, prioritize the product, to prioritize the experiment, to prioritize the feature? What does it take? It takes simple maths and simple projections and prediction. Some characteristics that I would want to show you is that what is, as a product manager, what do you see? What do you predict for your product? How close you are to the business? What do you understand? And if you're able to predict the future and curve, looking at the data, look at the market, then you are in for the experimentation. How much convinced you are based on the data that you validated. And that's where your experimentation journey starts. Let me take that up on the next couple of slides where I explain each of these characteristics in detail. Going about it and starting these points, you know, the experimentation really starts at investigation. Is there a problem statement? Is there a gap in the market that you've identified? What is that gap? How much audience is looking at that gap? What is the business viability? How many people are reaching out? So these are some of the questions that you need to gather in the beginning. And are you gathering enough data for investigation? These are some of the points that you have to start off with. Characteristics of the product are very, very simple and very, very, very logical. That how clear you are, how specific you are with respect to the experimentation you want to do, the experiment that you want to learn. What is the testability of that experiment? What is the unique technique? How fruitful is your discovery if you're discovering something? How many masters, how many people do you reach out to? So it totally depends on that. And there has to be a consistency and harmony in place between when you are reaching to a conclusion or defining a product statement or defining a feature statement. Is it doable by the technology team that you have, the technology stack that you have? Is it not? It shouldn't hamper the running operations. Are you able to do it in time? Are you able to do it in a certain cost? So all that needs to be balanced when you are planning an experimentation. Now let's get real. What is investigation? How do you do that? Well, in my experience, I have been through a number of companies and I have seen a number of products. And what I really understood were two things. One, your investigation starts off with a problem statement, which is real, which is impacting the business. You know, you are looking at it because it has some impact on the revenue. So you need to get that, you need to identify the problem statement, and then you need to balance it out in terms of what is the possible solution for it. How do you solve that problem? Does that solution come in place and does it impact the revenue? Does it impact the efficiency? Does it impact the growth? What does it impact? So these are some of the questions that you need to identify beforehand in order to list out the investigation that you're starting. You need to gather all that data. You need to understand at a broader level that if there is a problem, then how bigger impact does it have? If there is a gap, then how much will it take to fill that gap, where to go with it, and how to go about it? What are realistic development timelines? You need to have that discussion with your teams. You need to understand, you need to chalk out a large goal plan for it. Once you've done that and you've gathered enough evidence around it, you need to back it up with as much data as possible to make it more viable. If it is not that viable, then you can't take it ahead. What is the size that you want to start your experimentation on? What is the problem statement or gap that you've identified which is affecting how many users on the platform? Whether it's a back-end efficiency gap or it's a front-end problem, a real user impactful problem for the front-end user. Where is it hampering? You need to have that data in place and you need to back it up with as much data as possible, and you need to have in place what are the financial implications. If you do an experimentation, for example, if you do a feature launch in a small case, does it have a financial impact? Will it grow the revenue? How much revenue will it grow? In my experience, I have worked with these data points and I have succeeded. I have seen products which have grown day on day after a feature launch and impacted the real revenue of the company. But it's very important to understand where and how much data, how much users are getting impacted. What is the real implication of that? That needs to be gathered. Moving ahead. Well, as a product manager, I think if you guys are already in space and I've seen your, what I would say is that there's a priority list which is floated in every product management team, from the top management, from the business stakeholders and everything. But how do you prioritize that? How do you bring on your investigation or someone else's investigation in an experiment? So someone else has reached out to you with a feature idea, with a feature gap, and how do you take it? How do you prioritize? Now you need to see what is the impact that that feature would have, to which level that feature would have the impact. Is it going to increase the revenue? Is it going to increase the users, which is indirectly increasing the revenue? Or is it going to save the cost within the company? Now that needs to be really, really seen. Now, having said that, you as a product manager are running a P&L. Please understand that you as a product manager are running a P&L for your technology. For every money that is spent, every time that is spent in development, based on your feature, based on your feedback, there is a cost to the company. You need to have in place a list. You need to have in place a list with respect to what is the business case around that? How much will be the cost for a solution? Is it realistic? Is your technology ready? Is your team ready to implement that solution? And then you need to prioritize whether it's revenue growth, efficiency, or user growth. And based on that, you need to use your technology bandwidth efficiently. The second, after that, you have to plan it out. You have to plan it out carefully with respect to the roadmap in place. What the stakeholders have given you the roadmap. What is the roadmap? How does it go? Go ahead. There would be a roadmap which would be given to you by the CEO of the company. There would be a roadmap which would be given to you by the investors of the company. There would be roadmaps which would be given by the operations team of the company. How do you align all of them together towards one goal? And how do you use that? Do you work on agile methodology? Do you plan out sprints? Do you have product documentations in place to start any implementation? You need to plan all of that. And what are the impacting functions? What all departments do you have to tell the impacting feature that is going to come in place? How would cross-department communication work? You need to plan all of that. And only once that planning is in, you can move ahead, my friend. Once the planning is done, then it's all lock and load. You can straight away go for implementation, but hang on. If anything of a doubt is there with respect to that you've not discussed with technology and your documentations are not there, you can't move in place. You need to establish a process. Your sprints have to be planned way in advance. What do you see? How do you see it? How does it impact the environment? Everything needs to be planned. If it's a front-end product where a large number of users and features are dependent on it, then how do you move about it? You need to have those questions in place. Most importantly, in majority of the cases I've seen, and in the Indian industry, I've seen that the products of startups are not equipped for experimentation. But you need to establish that before going ahead. You need to establish how your architecture looks like with your technical architect. You need to have that bonding. You need to have that understanding with him. That does the platform allow you to do A/B testing? How do you measure it? How do you put the hooks on it? You need to have that in place. You need to have Google Analytics in place if it's a front end feature. You need to have measures like Hotjar in place, where you gather the data, you can back that data, and you can gather the impact of the new launch. But first and foremost, you need to have that A/B testing and UAT process in place. You need to start your development process and testing cycle properly to implement any experimentation. These experimentations are not that difficult for a technology team or for an engineer to do, on the side. But it's really not the developer who's doing something. It's really how it is planned out, how it is given out by a product manager, how he lays out the user story. What are the epics of that user story? How does it move ahead? How all the pieces of the puzzle come together? You need to understand that. And that's where the product experimentation really comes in place. The experiment for anything on the product, small or big, needs to be monitored, needs to be understood. There has to be clear KPIs defined for it and clear reportings in place. I was working with a company which was dealing in gifting, and we used to monitor the product on revenues. And we used to clearly see if the revenue dips on an hourly basis. We used to go back to the product and say, hey, there's a bug on production somewhere. We need to check that. We planned every production implementation and deployment of every feature three weeks in advance. And we used to do it in sprints of every 15 days. And deployments used to happen on a Wednesday, and we used to plan it in such a way that all testing of every product and UAT testing would get cleared from my desk as the product manager by Monday. And we used to look at it that the deployments would happen on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. We will be monitoring the products and monitoring the platform and then taking it forward. So you really have to understand your environment and set those hooks up. You need to set the monitoring pattern up. How many percentage of users are you reaching? What is the revenue are you reaching? What is the percentage of revenue that is growing? Those are the questions that go back when you start the implementation. That's the investment that you've done in your product. Now that's the technical bandwidth, and the revenue growth impacts there. That's where the fun of growth with revenue comes in place. I'm a big fan of that, and I've seen that work in real life. Now, once you've implemented and monitoring is done, now the main thing is, how do you roll out the feature to a mass if it's not A/B testing? What do you add? Basis on your monitoring, you will understand whether you've really solved the problem, whether it's reached to the objectives that you had set in before, or whether there's a discovery that you've done. You've discovered something. Now, what is the next process? What do you do from there? How do you move from there? How do you execute the changes? Is it part of your roadmap to make these changes? Was there a bug, or was there a new feature that you discovered? Right? You need to have a technical ops team in place, in an agile methodology in place, so that you're that fast and your developers are that fast in terms of switching. So some of the tools, I'm not sure whether you guys are aware of it or not, but some of the tools that helped me was implementing Git on the entire product, understanding Git properly, how the deployments go through a CI/CD tool, and how fast they can be rolled back, how a A/B testing can be set up. So all of this I had to set up on some of my products that I worked on with the technology team. It took some time, but they were all lifesavers, because we saved a lot of money. We brought down the cost of deployment, and we were able to iterate small features and roll them back really fast. So these are some of these activities that I did during my time with product in various companies. And I realized that the only way that you can move in an iterative state and in product experimentation is through constant development and agile methodology. That's the only thing that I understand. What do I mean by agile methodology? Your technology has to be on its toes. It has to be that fast that it can switch. You have to back your product feature that you suggest in such a meticulous way that even if you want to remove it after the launch because it's impacting something or it's not really taken that, you are able to do that seamlessly. Your technology has to back you up. You have to set your technology team's expectation and engineers' expectation that you're working with you right. That any product launch which is having can be rolled back, can be changed, can be iterated. Having said that, not planned a very long session, but here are some of the examples in the market that we've seen that the platforms and we can learn from other experimentations that are done. If you've really seen and know about Netflix and Amazon Prime, then you would be understanding that these are all paid OTT platforms. And really, when you're paying for content, you really don't want to see advertisements on it. But both of these platforms started testing out with real users and started showing advertising. They got a good backlash, but they were able to roll it back. But interestingly, both of these products still show advertising, but only to the users who've not objected about it or who have not skipped it. So they have put those hooks on the platform. On the other side, if you've heard about a platform by the name of View, now this is a platform which was a paid platform, which started showing advertising and couldn't roll back the experiment that it launched for extra revenue. And at the end of it, View is no longer in the market. It's bankrupt, it's over, it's closed. The platform has lost quite a lot of credibility, quite a lot of money. But really, the experiment went wrong here, that they switched on the advertising and then they rolled it back. So at this stage, I would want to, hold a bit, ask you guys if you have some questions in place. If there's a slide that you want me to go back to and explain further, I'll take 2 minutes. Okay. I see Abbas, Anil, Jyotirmay, Keshav, Sandeep, Vivek, Yasha. Any one of you guys have any questions so far? All right, so I believe I'll move ahead. Most recently, if you've heard of a platform by the name of Hokyu. Now, this was it read its last date on 30th April. This was a joint venture between Singtel, Sony Pictures, and Warner Brothers, a fairly large content platform, which was launched in the Singapore market and then aligned its ways across the telecom industry in India. And what it did primarily was worked hard towards doing a lot of content monetization and aligns with platforms in India like now Disney Hotstar, Airtel Extreme, and really sold its product as cross-selling content mapping. So what it was doing was that it was bringing real-time content from the United States of America to the other markets on a real-time basis without taking care of any real revenue exchange. That was not there in place, because all these platforms that were there that were marketing this had already taken up the revenues for its services in the Indian market, and there was no revenue share proper contract between Hokyu and them. So in fair amount, it couldn't roll back the content strategy, it couldn't roll back the features out, it could not restrict the other users to use that feature, and at the end of it, it ran out of money and it ran out of business. So that's what an experiment it tried to do, but it couldn't mature. So these are some real case studies which are there in the market. Also, I'm not sure if you guys have heard about Groupon. There was this company in US which started in 2008 as a group buying site and which went global. Now, what this product initially was, it was a forum. Groupon really started as a discussion forum in US, and it actually validated and gathered a lot of feedback. So suddenly on a discussion forum, there was a discussion being done around how people in groups can go to a restaurant or to any merchant and get a group discount. So this product really started on the backbone of that idea, and then iterated its way towards a Groupon where they started selling deals per day. And till the time the deals didn't hit a minimal threshold, it wouldn't get live. Once it hits minimal threshold, it would go live. Once this concept picked up fire, then there were approximately 300 to 400 clones of this product across the world. But what was it really happening? So this product was started from an experiment on a hypothesis based on a group discussion, and really went out in the market to sell coupons and vouchers. But it didn't iterate further. It stagnated itself over there. It tried launching payments solution. It couldn't. It finally created a platform which was a point of sale software for SMEs. It converted itself into that, but it really died down. And how did it die down? Because discount and vouchers were always second to payments. And once the payments initiative started globally in mobile payments, it died down because vouchers and coupons have always been byproducts of payments. I was lucky to be a part of a startup by the name of MyDala, which was first of its kind group buying site in India. And I have really seen how the product matured and changed, and eventually went into mobile couponing and mobile value added services, and started selling coupons via mobile and via mobile payments. Now that is the key. Groupon didn't go in that direction. And we saw some brands coming up. We saw Snapdeal come up with this idea on a similar UI of Groupon and started group buying, and changed the whole idea of not taking the entire money from the merchant for a voucher. It really just took 10% token from a customer and asked the customer to pay the rest to the merchant, because the cash flow management was a big issue in India. What was happening was, when we take, let's say we sell a 1,000 rupee voucher for 500 rupees, we take 500 rupees from the customer and pass 400 rupees to the merchant. But it was happening after a time. But this merchant was always servicing the customers that we had given the vouchers to. So this was creating an issue. This was creating a working capital issue. So Snapdeal came up with the concept of, you pay us token 10% and pay rest to the merchant balance with the, and avail the voucher value. So what it really did was, Snapdeal was getting its marketing money, but and the merchant was getting his money directly from the customer. But what the merchant was not getting was the breakage benefit, because if the coupon is being bought, then customer doesn't go to the merchant, then they don't have to service the customer, and they get that breakage benefit from Groupon or from MyDala. So that really was happening. But we've seen it pivot. Snapdeal now, everyone knows, is a renowned e-commerce site, and it's doing fairly well. Having said that, look at the current scenario of Airtel and Jio and Vodafone Idea. What do you think? Where did the experiment? What was the experiment? How is it going? Most recently, you must have heard in the news that Airtel is being invested by Facebook. So why did Facebook not invest in Airtel? Why did it not go? It would have picked up much bigger stakes in Vodafone Idea. Vodafone Idea has a very large user base in India. The probable reason is that Jio at this stage is doing far more experiments in digital space than Airtel and Vodafone Idea. And that's where the edge is. And if you've understood about Facebook, one thing is for sure, that they experiment every day. They have a release every day to a fixed audience of a new feature. And that's what they've been doing for their launch. If anyone remembers High Five or Orkut, then Those were the first social media platforms started before Facebook. They couldn't iterate, they couldn't experiment much, but today Facebook has taken over. So the key over here is experimentation is good as long as you can control, move ahead with certain priorities. You have a prerequisite of agile in place. You have to understand what is the need of the audience. You have to have that pulse, and you don't have to shy away from rolling out a feature or rolling it back, as long as it's doable and your platform is ready for it. A simple way of doing or starting any experimentation without spending is a painted door test. I'm not sure how many of you guys have heard of it, but painted door test, for example, is something that we've done a lot. I've done a lot for my products, where we used to gather feedback about the feature by telling the feature to the user and gathering that feedback. We used to do a lot of Hotjar analysis where we used to put Hotjar scripts. So if Hotjar allows you as a product manager to understand on web and mobile where your audience on the UI is looking at what and how a UI UX experience is for them. And you can gather a lot of data. So we used to do that a lot before defining or changing any feature or launching any feature. Now, one of the key thing is that a technology company in today's space has to have experimentation in its DNA. The technology team or developers cannot be left alone with respect to, cannot have this attitude of not doing any experimentation or not doing it. So every iteration of the product and yet is a growth to the product. So that has to be seen. And always link your experimentation to revenue. You will be on the right side. Because at the end of the day, if revenue goes up or down, you need to be ready with the product experiment launch or next iteration, or you need to be ready to roll back that experimentation. If a product doesn't change, it will eventually die. That's what you should learn, and that's what the industry has shown you. Look at the products which were there 5 years back and which are not there right now. You will understand. Look at the features on any platform like Facebook, which were there 5 years back, which were not now. Look at how Facebook has changed and evolved. Look at how our mobiles have changed and evolved. Now, Facebook prefers more video content than it did 5 years back, looking at the bandwidth. And that's where the key is. That was it for the simple presentation that I had in mind in place for this.
Hi, Nikhil. This is Keshav this side.
Hi,
Thank you
Keshav.
for this wonderful session. It was quite insightful. One thing with respect to experiment, which you mentioned out, yeah, it's always good to experiment, right? To see, just improvise your app. Otherwise, it might eventually go in a declining phase, the product development. So I was trying to understand, how would you know that you would have come across certain ideas, okay? But if your product is doing really good, right? If your product is doing really good, it's in the growing phase. How do you take it forward? You might want to have that kind of risk, so as to put in your ideas to test it. Maybe you want to do A/B testing per se in that particular case. How are you going to take it forward?
Now, I mean, it really boils down to what is the genesis of that idea? Is it an idea that you got out of consumer feedback? Is it an idea that you observed on the product? Is it a gap? What is the problem statement? If your product is
Right.
doing really well, it depends on that. So
Right.
first, before penning down any problem statement, you need to really understand is how are you linking that problem to real user experience, and what is it solving? Is it solving anything? Uh,
Right, right. So I do get it, but yeah, that does make sense if you're getting an idea with respect to data, or if you're getting an idea with respect to user feedback. In that case, it totally makes sense to definitely go ahead with that particular thing.
Yeah, you
But
can forget the data as well. At times, the data is not available.
right, that's in those cases I'm talking about. In the cases when we don't have data for certain things, and we don't have any user feedback for certain scenarios, but we have a gut feeling, okay, this particular thing I believe is going to do well,
Then, then,
and
then,
I haven't seen that thing around anywhere, so that's a totally new thing.
then there the second thing that you can do is run an internal survey with employees
Mhm.
of the company, with the operations teams of the company, and understand that. because what that will help you out with is really validating your gut feeling, really validating whether it's needed or not. And not everyone or every tech platform in startups in India or every platform has the liberty of doing A/B testing. But in a small way, if you can do paint testing with respect to that, you can gather customer feedback around a small change that you do or around a small feature that you can do, then that will help you. But an internal check with the teams has always helped me in terms of getting my gut feeling correct and really ideating that. Also, you need to understand what is the cost of that implementation and how ready is your feature set with respect to uh, what are the set of features that you're launching, and if you can button this feature over there with that cost. It really boils down to that. Bottom line is that if the platform is growing, then what is the value add that your feature is going to do, and how will you back it up with data which is on hypothesis as well, or which is on a business case as well. But the main thing over here is that if you're launching a feature, then experimentation is not about just launching. Experimentation is about iterating it, taking it forward, or keep bringing it back. If you're that agile and your team is that agile, you can always roll it back if it has a negative impact on the platform. But boiling down to internal feedbacks and gathering that data through queries and through feedback forums, that is the main thing over here. So how do you do that? You need to have a clear investigation in place for your feature, and then you need to back it with pointers. Does that answer you, Keshav?
It does answer. Thank you very much. I was also thinking in the same aspect. I was just wanting to clarify it with the information from your side.
Yeah, I mean, see,
Yeah.
we can discuss this more offline
Yeah.
if you tell
Yeah.
me what your problem statement and your thing.
Sure,
I
I'll
can
do
guide
that.
you on that. But on the real scenario, not everyone is that lucky as a product manager to get that experimentation in place unless you've done that.
Right.
You have that much of time and bandwidth. So
Right.
that my friend is always been the dilemma of a product manager, what he
Got it.
wants to do and what is being asked for him to do. So that is something
Got
to
it.
do.
Cool. Thank you. That does help me a lot. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, Keshav. I see Abbas's mic off. Abbas, you have any questions?
Nikhil, I was about to ask questions. Like,
Yeah.
it is not direct question; it is indirect question. As I can see, like you have also worked as PM in Droom.
Yeah.
So I am right now head of operations at an aftermarket automotive service industry startup. So like in this industry, there is basically a problem like to actually understand the users, like what the actually user wants. So while working at Droom, uh, have you made some hypothesis or what type of product you have worked upon?
So I was a group product manager at Room.
Yeah.
I was working on the seller side,
Yeah.
and my analysis on the platform and my analysis of the whole industry is that it's quite unreal, automotive, especially in India.
Yeah.
It is at a growth stage, especially now, COVID-19, that a lot of users want to go online, want to experience, want to see the second hand, first hand, and all feature platform. But real transactions also come through the platform. It's a tough market. The understanding of what you want to build as a product manager in it and how do you want the curve is not that natural. It's not a natural e-commerce. It's quite a tangible product, but it's really the UI UX experience and the information that you can give to the user that I've seen, and how much you can translate and how close you can bring the user to a transaction. That's really what works. So at Droom, we were doing fairly well with respect to online transactions, but and it was fairly mature to say that yes, it's a very lucrative industry to get into automotive, especially now that the such platforms will increase. Marketing of such platforms would increase, but however, the space is still a bit far with respect to real user experience, because at the end of the day, user buying a tangible product is a tough. But having said that, before 2009, it was very difficult to sell anything on e-commerce. But you have Jeff Bezos, who's been selling books since 1996 or 1998 on Amazon, and he's the richest man. So never say never, but the industry, it will keep on changing. You just need to understand what the user wants and where your user is going. So you really have to have those hooks on place, that you have to have your Hotjar in place. You need to understand what the user wants and give him more of that.
Got it, Nikhil. There are like more questions revolving around it, but I will connecting it later.
Sure. You can write to me, you can contact me through the forum. That's fine.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
One more quick question, Nikhil.
Yeah.
As you mentioned Hotjar, right? I have also implemented Hotjar in my project long time back. I did. So the one issue with Hotjar is that first of all, what it does is basically it performs session recordings and it gives you a let's say heat maps. That's what it does. So there can be a scenario when you have ample number of session recordings, right? And moreover, Hotjar doesn't give you capabilities to filter out that easily. It gives you capability to put JavaScript code in the tag and post to trigger the JavaScript code. Then you might get a screenshot or you might get a session recording accordingly.
So how are you implementing it? How you implemented the Hotjar script?
So implement it in two fashions. One is with the JavaScript code. It gives you an option, right? It gives an option to implement with respect to URL or with respect to JavaScript code. I have implemented both the cases. I guess for heat map, I have used JavaScript trigger codes, and for videos, I have used URL. I guess for videos, you can only use URL only.
Okay, so I always implemented the Hotjar code through Google Tag Manager, because I always believe that Hotjar is something which slows down the platform front end. I have witnessed that, and I have always implemented through Google Tag Manager, and I have not faced the issue that you are talking about. So I really want to understand the implementation, whether that is happening correctly or not, and also the paid version allows you a lot of upgraded paid version allows you a lot of features which solves the problem. But it's a cumbersome task going through those videos, going through the heat maps. It's quite a cumbersome task, and you really have to narrow it down to certain amount of users and certain amount of platforms. So paid platform allows you to narrow it down to device, narrow it down to IPs, narrow it down to various users, and then look at that analysis. If you don't, then we are done for the day. Write out to me if you need any help. Reach out to me. I'll be happy to advise on any of your products, and I would love to see your products live and any problems which I can solve or help you guys solve.
Of course, then I will be sending you.
Sure.